everyone, and welcome to Coproduce Care's Chat for Care. I am absolutely delighted to be spending this whole Chat for Care, this whole hour, talking about registered managers, talking about resilience, talking about coaching, how we support registered managers, and what to do the next stage as we move out of lockdown and we move into business as usual for COVID-19. So I've got a fantastic lineup today. I'm going to speak to two people that are involved with an organization called Talent for Care. So Alessandro and Simon, we're going to be talking about how we help registered managers to recover from the trauma that has been COVID-19. Not a lot of attention has been put on registered managers. I always complain about this because I've been a registered manager and I work with registered managers, so I know exactly what it's like. But it's been really horrendous for some people who've had to go through the COVID-19 period. As stats are getting better, and we're hoping there isn't a second wave, but even if there is, how do we prepare better? So that's what tonight is all about. I hope you're all okay. I'm melting in this heat. It is so hot, but I'm surviving just about. But you might see me patting myself down with paper and whatnot. But we are a little bit late, a couple of minutes, because I was glued to catching up with the Commons debate today. We put out a petition a few, probably about 2-3 months ago when this all happened. And basically we were kind of asking the government to see health and social care as equal as the NHS. And this got mentioned twice. So our a petition I kind of drafted at like midnight when I was just frustrated at the lack of recognition for social care. It got mentioned twice in the Commons debate today by both the Helen Whately, who is the social care minister in the government right now, and also by the person who was bringing the motion from the MP from the petitions committee. So, the overall ethos was just to have social care on a par. We call it parity of esteem, and there's so many levels of parity of esteem that we need. So I was just glued to that. I was trying to get you a clip. I don't think I'm going to be able to. It's just a little mention, but it's a start. It's not enough. It's a start. They're talking about it, and it's on us to keep the pressure on. There's so many petitions. They were talking about a lot of petitions which were around health and social care, and it's really on us now to keep the pressure on our local MPs. I think people underestimate the power of local MPs. If you have a good local MP, and you are telling them hay fever, the stories that you are dealing with, the issues as a registered manager, definitely use them, write to them, tell them your struggles, however mundane they may seem. They are, I think we all forget that how much they don't know about social care. They really haven't got a clue. Even the people you would expect to have an idea of what registered managers go through don't even engage with that part of social care. So I was glued to that and really happy that we got that mention. But as always, we have to keep the pressure on. I think what we've created here on the Chat for Cares is a great resource for people to look back on a host of videos we've done. We've done videos with lawyers on the Medical Capacity Act, on Neil Eastwood has got his new app out. We've done an hour's interview with him and how that came about and how it works. And that's all to do with recruitment. And we're doing more of these every week. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Please like, thumbs up. Please share, bring more people to the channel if you can. And let's just have a bit more of a debate, open up the debate. We're talking about some really great things tonight. And I'm really excited to be doing that. So Talent for Care, there you go. That's the logo if you're looking for it. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. So rather than me blab on anymore, I'll just put up a few banners there. Don't forget your comments. I'm going to bring up my two guests. Hello, both.
Hi, Sophie, and good evening, everyone. Hi.
Great. I think there might be a little bit of lag on my screen, so hopefully people can see and hear me okay. But if you can't, then go ahead, put some comments in the comments box, and we'll try and get that sorted for you. So I should say on your screens, top right, my right, I hope it's everyone else's right, with the plant in the background, the bigger plant in the background. I'm trying to distinguish both of you, but you've both got plants in the background. You're both wearing blue shirts.
I've got a beard, Sophie. He hasn't.
Yeah, and you're both wearing glasses. Okay, so the bearded man is Simon, and then you have Alessandro there as well. So you've got their names at the bottom. Great. So welcome both of you, and you two are the head of brainchild of Talent for Care. So welcome.
Thank you, Sophie. And well, it's a great pleasure to be here. Very excited, to be honest. And of course, good evening, everyone. And just thank you for having us. So
yeah, and it's funny how these things come about, because both of us, a lot of the people who I've had on the live stream, we met. Actually, we were talking, I think, just before, maybe it was LinkedIn, and then we met at Care England's conference, and that must have been not too shortly before the lockdown. It wasn't too close to the lockdown, but I think it was, it was coming. I think it was this year. And then, I was introduced to what you're doing around recognizing care workers and the workforce. And it's fantastic. I was going from listening to the debates about workforce in the House of Commons today, for a couple of hours today. And now we're going to be talking about the tangible benefits we can give, because there's a lot that they don't have, but there's tangible benefits. But before we get on to all of that, maybe we could have a bit of an introduction from you both, because you're both coming from different backgrounds. Alessandro, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, with great pleasure. So we've all got care and healthcare background, but I would say in different ways over many years. And then we came together last year as Talent for Care with one very specific purpose, which is to transform care worker retention. I suppose it's quite easy to agree that the sustainability of the care sector hinges on the ability to attract and retain as much as attract care talent. Lots of things we're all doing about it, but we thought it was time to try to do something different, and that's why Talent for Care was born in the pre-COVID era when we met, which was in 2019.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what is Talent for Care?
So Talent for Care is a team of professionals from care and healthcare, but also other industries, background on other industries with similar challenges. Where looking after the workforce is not straightforward sometimes. It's not straightforward to pay the workforce in the way that we want to pay them, but it is also essential to the sustainability of the industry, but of the services delivered, And when we talk about care services, I think it's pretty obvious to everyone. So that's what brought us together, trying to do something different, which we were doing in 2019 before clearly the world went a bit upside down. And now we're delighted to try to help under the new circumstances.
Great. And I'm going to bring Simon in now, because I met you virtually like this just very recently. Yes. And it was good to hear that your background, you're caring for people within your family, so you've got very close connection with what is care work, and also you have got a passion for supporting the workforce.
Definitely. I mean, my background is kind of in the people business, so working with people to change their lives, make them more effective at work, coaching people, running programs around leadership, conflict, this type of thing, mediation work. So had a lot of experience with people. And it was a real delight to meet up with Alessandro, because, I mean, there's definitely something in common for us. And having done a fair bit of work in social care as well as healthcare, but in social care, we just really got that we could make a difference, and that's kind of like how that all started. So great combo.
Yeah, lovely. So I really want to talk about why you feel that this was necessary. So to focus on care work and focus on some of the issues that care workers have. Was there anything that spurred you on to think there's nothing like what we are doing at the moment? And then we'll come on to what that is.
Yeah, if I may go first, Sophie, I think almost the acceptance in the care sector that we can live with 30 to 40% average staff turnover across the sector. Well, that was the thing that, we strongly disagreed with and that we set off to change last year. As I said, we've all got background in healthcare. If you look at the NHS, it's doing better. The NHS has got plenty of challenges, but we're talking about obviously integrated care and coming together. Well, there's a few things we can learn perhaps from healthcare under different circumstances. Staff turnover in the NHS on average is less than half than what is in the care sector. And if you take nurses, which are comparable to a certain extent to some frontline care staff, or nurses in care as well, well, you go down to 12% or so. Now, we don't want to spend the whole evening talking about retention, but our point is accepting that 400,000 and more care workers every year switch jobs, 2/3 of them stay in care, 1/3 move out. It's not right. It causes a huge, that's one of the fundamental causes or challenges to the sustainability of what we do, I suppose. And so we set off to change it. And we set off to change it in a number of different ways, fundamentally through innovation, but through investment in frontline staff. That is one of the key things that hopefully brought us here tonight, because it really applies to what we're going through, all of us in different ways at the moment under COVID. The central point of everything we do is investing in frontline staff, being that care workers, registered managers, frontline managers and supervisors, but directly into them. What has happened a lot in the past is that the investment went further up the chain into leadership, into developing leadership, successful leadership team, essential. Simon will explain how much work he and the rest of the team have done in that area. But what we're doing is different. We're investing or working with organizations of all sorts to invest in frontline staff. And that applies to local authorities, to private care organization, to non-for-profit care organization. The dynamics are very similar, and what we're trying to do applies to all of them in the same way. And when we say investing, and I'll just shut up in a minute, I promise. I'm Italian, so you have to forgive me. I can talk quite a bit, but investing means investing in their personal development, but directly with them and for them. And by doing that, you change the dynamics. You change the dynamics for the workforce in the front line, but also for the engagement and the sense of belonging to the organization they work for.
Absolutely. And the way that you're doing that is you're thinking about using people in leadership positions. So like registered managers, which is kind of why I mentioned them, is because they are like the conduit in order to help provide that support. So by supporting them, they are supporting everybody within their organization. That's the cascading of knowledge and support. And they are the leaders, the active leaders within care homes. So if you don't have a registered manager, it's very difficult to get cohesion within a team. So you've developed something called the Recovery Champions. Can you talk a bit about that? Maybe Simon, you can kind of give us some insight to what that is.
Of course. Just to go back to just something you said there, Sophie, that one of the greatest challenges, of course, is that in social care there isn't the capacity or finances as there is in healthcare, and that's been one of our challenges in terms of delivering something inside social care. So that's been something that we put quite a lot of effort and work into to try and make that work. And you're absolutely spot on in that care home managers are completely pivotal in the whole system. And if that isn't working well or isn't working at all, it has a massive impact on not only the staff of that home or homes, they might be managing more than one, but actually on the people that are actually living there as well, and on the organization. So those are all very relevant points, which you quite rightly pointed out. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. So one thing I wanted to ask you is so I'll put up the poster if I have it here. So the Recovery Champions, it's like a program. It's looking at supporting leaders, and you have some participants that can work together and almost try and self-manage a support system. Can you talk to us a bit about what is a Recovery Champion?
I can. So, well, there are two things. So in my mind, one is what is the Recovery Champions program, and secondly, what is a Recovery Champion? So if I just address the program just for a minute, if I may. So the program kind of offers the opportunity to prepare for the future in a new way. Now, as we've already mentioned, that we don't actually know what the future is going to hold. But what we have learned is that with the pandemic, that actually you can't plan for that, which clearly we didn't. But however, the what's to follow is something that we might have some idea about, and this is the recovery phase. So the program, if you can imagine for a minute, if I use the analogy of broadband, the broadband has a bandwidth, as we were discussing just prior to the call, and when that bandwidth has a certain band, and basically, if you can imagine that as human beings we have bandwidths and we operate our lives and engage in our work through that particular bandwidth, and the tendency is that we respond to life from that bandwidth and we keep doing the same thing. It's not bad or wrong, it's just what we do. The program that we've developed is a way of expanding that bandwidth hugely. And what it allows is for people to think differently, to respond differently, to look at their lives differently. So it has a fundamental effect on an individual or individuals working on and looking to be a recovery champion. So as we mentioned before, the program is focused on frontline staff, around managers and staff of of teams. It's kind of it works on the basis of transforming how they perform. And they can actually during the program develop a way of thinking about themselves and about the difficulties that they're dealing with in a very, very different way. And how we do that is that we work with people on focusing on human factors or qualities that support a positive orientation to life. Now, that may sound a bit of a mouthful, but actually it's a very important point in terms of our experience of life and also our experience of working, and particularly when we're working under stress. The program develops during this 9 weeks insight for the individual around their own levels of resilience, self-esteem, how they relate to people, communication. These are all Delta's top priorities in terms of what they will learn and practice during that time. One of the important points about the program in terms of its duration is that to start with, they will work on themselves. That's the starting point. And then I think it's week 5, that work is then taken outside of themselves to others and is practiced. So the 9 weeks is very specific. It's a minimum amount of time to truly make a difference for someone. And it's a maximum amount of time to engage people who are incredibly busy and have difficult schedules. And so what we do is we have a frequency of input to the people, but on a regular basis. You're on mute.
Sorry. Sorry, I tried to multitask, bring out
Right.
Alessandro back in and unmute. I do this a lot. So I'm going to bring Alessandro back in because I want to talk about the idea that there's a kind of trauma that and I've definitely heard it from on WhatsApp groups and talking to registered managers that people have just gone through, almost like we talked about kind of the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder type issue that people have had to face because either they've been manager of a service that has lost many of its beloved people that they support, or staff members, or just having that, you know, I talk about the imposter syndrome a lot when you are expected to have the answers to so much. You know, you're reporting, even on any level, you know, you're reporting to somebody in your organization. You've also got the pressure of local authorities. You've got health professionals who may or may not help you in the early days. We know that care homes are being asked to take clients back, pressured to take them back from hospital, guilted into doing that. And it's and then you've got a lot of press constantly. As soon as you turn on your TV, no matter what you watch, it's all about care work, negative stats. And I suppose what you're trying to look at is very much how do we support people to come out of that and to reflect back and have a positive, more like a strength-based approach to moving forward, especially when things might happen again, and it may or may not be worse. Let's hope it's not. So do you have any stories of the approach that you're taking of how it's benefited people, or any feedback from registered managers?
So we run a support and wellbeing forum pro bono through the height of the pandemic. So for the last 2 or 3 months, with the purpose of, you know, listening, helping, doing whatever we could remotely, of course, to make a small contribution to, you know, the immense challenges that everyone in the front line, registered managers and their team faced. The stories that came through, we're probably all familiar with. You mentioned some of them. You know, we're all familiar with the challenges. The thing is, in the last few weeks, it felt like the dynamics have changed. We went through, you know, the period where everyone was putting up with unbelievable efforts and soldiered through all that. And now we're getting to the point where of course, by no means out of this and for a long time, but maybe we're starting, or everyone is starting to relax a tiny bit. And it feels like when the adrenaline goes, the dynamics really change. And talking to managers, registered managers, or other frontline staff, it feels like it went from throwing everything in to now relaxing and really being in danger of, you call it post-traumatic stress, but anyway, of falling over themselves with it. And if you hear what they tell us, but also it's enough to read any chat from registered managers online, you will see that the dynamics are like now, there's almost a degree of anger. There is a degree of, you know, we're really coming out what everyone has been through. And the point is, it is now that we need to intervene and almost prevent what could be, you know, more difficult consequences further down the line. Yeah, without rating it in healthcare, a lot of people are talking about a potential ticking time bomb of mental health crisis. Well, we don't want to go as far as that, but the point is, if we were not prepared for the pandemic, and it was very difficult to be prepared for the pandemic, now we need to be prepared for what comes next. Recovery, and ideally, you know, what we call the new normal, or, you know, whatever the uncertainty we'll have to deal with. And that's what we're trying to do. So we shifted all the good things we're doing about retention to help people to recover, pick themselves up first, but then helping others in, you know, dealing with what is going to come next. And that's the concept of recovery champions that's clearly is resonating with frontline staff.
Yeah, absolutely. That resonates so much. And, you know, from your point of view, so I think, did you say earlier to me that you have a background in the army or in forces or something, Simon? Or did I just?
So I think you're probably It was one of your guests last week. I think it was it. Am I right to think it's probably Jonathan Cunningham, one of the register manager in chat? Oh, anyway, one of your previous guests that had an army background. Actually, for my sins, I've been in the army because I lived in the UK for 20 years, but I grew up in Italy, and at the time there was still compulsory military service. So I've done a year and a half as a second lieutenant in the Italian army.
But I was thinking about Simon. Is there something in your background? No.
No.
Well, okay, I totally made that up.
There is historically in the family, but not as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, fine. I was just wondering where the concept, the PTSD kind of came in, but yeah, no, that's fine.
Well, the concept of PTSD really is from everything we see and we hear from the front line, and is also trying to learn from previous crises. If you look at what happened with SARS 15 years ago, whenever it was, all the stats point at, over 10% of frontline staff ending up in that scenario. And what we want to do, 10% is a big number, but there's a much bigger number that probably don't get captured by a statistic, but they need support now. And what we're trying to do is just to prevent that from happening. There was a survey done between May and June of care home managers across the whole of England, and 70% of that reported concerns with mental health for them or for their own staff. So apart from looking after themselves, they've got significant concerns about looking after their teams. And what we want to do is just help now. Now is the time to sort of prevent any more serious consequences down the line. And, the way we do it, with this 9-week program is very, very similar in terms of both the approach and the key principles to what we've been doing to support retention. So it's about helping people to cope, first of all, and then moving forward into something more positive than just coping. And in the case of Recovery Champions, it's not just helping themselves, but as Simon said before, is helping them from a certain point onwards to help others and benefiting their teams, the people they look after, their communities. So that's why you create this positive effect. But fundamentally, it's about trying to catch people. Well, first of all, recognize the huge effort they made, thank them for that by supporting them a bit better at this stage, and then maybe catch a few that otherwise, might have bigger challenges further down the line for the benefit of everyone.
Absolutely. And I suppose I've got a question here that's wondering, because I mentioned something that totally is not relevant with the army, but someone was saying, I was just wondering, what are their backgrounds? People want to know, how do you know that you are going to be able to really support, care workers and care staff? And, these are the things that people really want to get to grips with. But I suppose it's not just you, it's also your team. You're supported by a team of coaches and people who can help facilitate the discussions between people who are on the program, but also you did some research, and you were talking to me earlier about you did over a couple of years, and you spoke to quite a lot of managers and care organizations. So you built up quite a lot of knowledge around what the issues were and how people were coping or not coping. I don't know, maybe Simon, it's good to come to with what that kind of revealed and any kind of experiences that you learned from that.
Sorry, I was distracted by reading the chat on the right. Then I missed what you said just before then.
That's okay. There isn't too much on the chat, but yeah.
Can you ask me again? Sorry.
No, I was just saying that you did a lump of research over a couple of years, and I think it was it 90 or so organizations you spoke with?
No. That so so first I think there's a collapsing here. We've done a substantial piece of work with 90 care home managers.
Okay, yeah,
that was what
that's
that conversation was.
Yeah,
and albeit around leadership at that time, but nonetheless, all of the qualities, well, not all of them, but some of the qualities within that training are also within this program. So, in terms of what's our credibility, I suppose one of the responses would be the fact that we've been delivering programs to people and coaching people for over 25 years. So in the NHS and in social care. So, and you know, spoken to thousands of people. So yes, we have a lot of experience with people. And I think we've developed this and refined this program to be absolutely precise in terms of what's delivered, how it's delivered, and how we engage with the people. So that's been particularly important given the challenges that we would face engaging in social care in terms of training and development, if you like, and also addressing the fact that financially there isn't the same ability to pay for this type of training in social care as there is in healthcare. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does a little bit. You've gone a little bit muffled, so it might be just the internet. So I'm just going to see if Alessandro, that came back a little bit. Alessandro, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, with pleasure. So in terms of background, which is a fair question, isn't it? So I haven't done 25 years of coaching like Simon and most of our team has done. You know, my background is more corporate. I used to run and turn around healthcare and care-related businesses, but in a more traditional corporate way. And the thing that really struck me running and turning around businesses is it's always been about the engagement of the front line. You know, we won or lost in everything we try to do, mainly delivering services in care and healthcare, by engagement of the front line. And we never did enough or tried anything different enough to achieve that. Sometimes we succeeded through a huge amount of effort, but it was always in a fairly traditional way. And the reason why we came together is because when you combine the coaching expertise with the innovation we're talking about, you can create something really quite unique. Let me give you an example. So if we could put Simon and the rest of the team in front of every registered manager in the UK and have the luxury of offering a one-to-one coaching for however long needed, you know, that I've got absolutely no doubt we'll be able to transform some of the dynamics that we were talking about, from recovery to retention and everything else. But we can't do that. It's just simply not affordable for obvious reasons. So what we've done is, with retention first and with recovery now, try to turn this into something we can deliver and we can reach out, you know, having the ability to reach out to as many people, registered manager and their teams, as possible, to give them the same benefits, but in a cost-effective way. And that's where really the innovation comes from. You know, our programs are delivered through a mix, you know, a combination of media, now just remotely for obvious reasons, but even before, it was always a combination of things, because it's a different type of interaction you achieve by team coaching or by dynamics that we create within the team. And I think it's all these different levels coming together that create the experience. But ultimately, it's about, as Simon said, investing in personal development of frontline staff, resilience, ability to manage anxiety and difficult situations, communication skills, sometimes motivation, which is not something fixed for any of us, and bringing all that to the fore and dealing with it in a way that you know, at the other end, the teams we work with are in a much better place. And that's good for themselves individually, it's good for themselves as a team, but also obviously for the people they look after and the organization they work with, because that's where you create the engagement that makes you want to work for your team. And Sophie, you run very successful teams yourself, so you can probably relate to, I hope you can relate to what we're saying.
No, I can. And I like the emphasis on coaching. For me, that's like really important, because you often see people talk about reflective practice, which is good, but also the idea of you're not just mentoring someone, it means something different to have a coaching, the ability to coach, and to have somebody who has a little bit of insight into how they need to coach others. And we talked about, if you have those skills within, it's not something that you necessarily encourage. There's nothing in the care certificate that says you need to know how to coach somebody, but actually that's a wonderful skill to have, not just to coach yourself and your team, but to coach almost the other people, professionals you work with, because it's almost being able to convince people, isn't it, to have that ability to moot a point and to bring them along with what you're trying to do, whether it's person-centered care or improving the services or even changing of a care package. Being able to kind of coach people through the process, I think is quite an important skill that you know, it's difficult to learn and it takes time. So in terms of the details of the actual scheme of what you do, you've got managers who, do you get to work in a group? Do you get to have contact with different people, different managers from different organizations? How is it set up, and you know, how does it work? I don't know who that should go to.
Well, I'll go first and then I'll let them get on with it. So the answer is both, because again, with our desire, in particular for Recovery Champion, to reach out to as many people as we can with our programs and make it affordable for everyone, there are organizations that kind of, you know, run a cohort. We run the programs for cohorts of 10 to 30 people with different dynamics depending on the size of the cohort. But there are organizations that can fill a cohort themselves or many cohorts. And there are others where, in particular, working with local authorities, where they want to bring together a number of small providers they work with and, you know, form a cohort with people from different organizations, which is a great way of doing it as well. So it works in both ways, but it works in cohort of 10 to 30 people for the 9 weeks, as we were saying.
Lovely. Did you have anything you wanted to add in terms of what people would be getting for this this support, the training, Simon?
Yep, of course. So as we've already mentioned, it's a 9-week program. The first period of time is I think it's the first 3. I don't have the details in front of me. Is done on a weekly basis, and then it moves out to 2 weekly. So the idea is that you can have a group of people, and I think, as Alessandro has mentioned, it's likely that the group of people that you'll be with will be with your organization, although that may not be the case, depending on how the organizations engage with us. So you'll be working with a group of people, going through the same experience. You have a practice partner. So this is someone that you becomes a practice partner in as much that they are somebody you speak to on a weekly basis, and that you engage the work. The work that you're engaged with is done with them. So you get to know somebody really well.
We're losing your sound a little bit, so I feel like you were just getting into something really good. But Alessandro, maybe you can kind of tell.
Yeah, I can cover it briefly. It's true, actually. We're talking about, you know, what we want to do without going into a bit more specific. So week 1 to 4 is about resilience in different chunks. And it is really back to what we're saying, is picking ourselves up from where, you know, what we've been through in the last few weeks and making sure we're in a good place to then help other people going forward. And it happens with coaching sessions for the cohort, and then with assignments in between with your practice partner and with all the people around you. So it's an ongoing experience for the 9 weeks with 6 coaching sessions and then all the assignments in between that give the continuity. But the beginning is about resilience. You need to start from that, and you need to build the resilience for what comes next. The second part of the course, so week 5 to 9, or the program, it's not a course really, of the program, the experience, is about actually preparing for opening ourselves up, if you want, for whatever could come next. And if we're in a good place to having sort of been in a stronger position after the first 4 weeks, well, we are in a place to start opening up for possibility. And that's really changing mindset in terms of the broadband, you know, the bandwidth that Sam was talking about before, but also really the approach in terms of looking at the future. I benefit from this myself over the years, and that's why it's one of the reasons why we're so excited about sharing it in a different form with everyone. But it's really about creating a mindset of possibility, flexibility, and possibility, which is much easier said than done, especially if you come from 3 or 4 months, which have been, what everyone knows, and you are not in the best place to do that. So these 2 chunks to help with what is the priority, and then, preparing for what comes next. And in doing it, helping others, obviously, getting ready to help others to do that. And that's also, as we were saying, Sophie, this is about affordability, isn't it? So we came up, both for retention and for recovery, with something that we can roll out to a large number of people in a cost-effective way, but also then create benefits that the recovery champions bring to everyone around them, being the people they care for, their colleagues, or the community they're in.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of it, because you're not just teaching one person, you're teaching one person to be able to filter that knowledge out to the rest of their teams. So that's your kind of value for money type thing. But also, I was just thinking, last night we had a chat for care about resilience amongst BME groups especially, and that was the big thing. It's not only just resilience as an individual, but also resilience in an organization. How do you support your staff? And that's the big challenge. And I think sometimes also that support for registered managers or staff and leadership or in care just isn't there as much, or just needs to be refined. So it's refreshing that people are thinking about creating a safe space where people can co-create their own answers, not just go on a training course, but also co-create, because it's those kind of schemes and solutions that people build from their own experience for their own organizations that then is more sustainable. So there's also some experience you've had in it, or I don't know if it's connected with, probably not connected with this because this is quite new, but you've also had experience with supporting organizations to improve their CQC rating. And I know that in the past that was a big thing, whether that's as very important now. But how did you manage to do that? I might bring in Simon because he might be able to add to this again.
Hi, is it working now?
Yes, that's good.
Good, sorted. So yeah, the CQC. So one of the providers that we care providers that we worked for had a CQC inspection due on a home which was much needing an upgrade in its certification, and this particular the manager and the deputy manager took on project for a period of time to make an impact on that CQC report. Now, as you know, what's not been mentioned so far, and I'll mention it now, is that the programs that we're speaking about work with intangibles. So it's not like we're providing PPE equipment or telling people how to do manual handling and you do a demonstration. Everything that we've been speaking about so far, and everything to do with the program, is it's intangible. It's not like a solid thing that you can hold. And so the challenge is to work with the intangibles for people and to have them occur in a tangible world, if you like, to make a difference. So working with these managers for a care home, they took on working on themselves and on their team to, over a period of time, short period of time, to make a difference to the CQC inspection. And they did, and it was very successful. So that's one story. There are others around impact on CQC rating attributed to engaging in this work and these conversations and people's personal and collective development. You're on mute, Sophie, I think. So I on there.
Type of work. How is it a benefit?
So can you say that again? I didn't get any of that because I didn't hear any of that.
That's okay. I was just wondering how CQC found this as a benefit, this type of way of working or approach to care.
I don't think the CQC did. All I'm saying is that the home that we're speaking about took something on for themselves through working with us at that time to make a difference, and their rating went up a notch, and the care home attributed that outcome to doing this work for themselves and collectively with their teams. That's what they said. That was what was fed back. So
do you feel in terms of coaching this approach, it's almost as if managers are able to work with their teams to improve services?
Yes.
So it's helping that engagement to think, to come across, to approach care in a whole team system way rather than a top-down manner. I definitely feel that is an easier way to do care if you can get it right. It's difficult because if people aren't used to working in that way, they're like, well, you're the manager, just tell me what to do. I don't have to think about it. But actually, it's that skill of bringing the team along to help them be their own mini leaders, if you like.
So that to do that requires thinking in a different way, isn't it? Because I mean, the as you quite rightly pointed out, the normal way is hierarchical, and everywhere we go, it's however much we might say it's not, hierarchy still exists, and very much so in social care and healthcare. Having said that, when you come across a home or a company or organization who are practicing, and I use that word deliberately, practicing this sort of holistic type training, conversations, taking responsibility, all of these things, there's a very, very different energy and feel to that setup. And I do believe it's the way forward, very much so. And and a lot of our work directly speaks to that methodology, if you like.
So it's almost helping managers or people in leadership positions to understand how they can bring their team along to co-create these solutions. So that they can self-manage. And I definitely feel when you go into a home and you realize that each member of staff has their own responsibility or their own autonomy, you get that feel. But it's not something you can tell people to do. It has to be built into the culture.
It's created, isn't it? It's something that's created. It's, as you quite rightly said, it's not like you go that, there's your instruction, there's your piece of paper. That's how we do it. That doesn't change anything.
Absolutely.
Knowing something doesn't change anything. It's when we know something and we also then practice something or take action deliberately that causes change. So it's a very important point. I mean, removing, for example, us and them conversations from an organization, whether it's social care, healthcare, wherever it is, makes a massive difference to people's experience of being at work. Just one thing, us and them. So it's a big deal.
So I want to talk about COVID-19 from a personal standpoint. How have you found COVID-19? Because you've got a family there, haven't you?
I tell you what, we have. Cutting a very, very long story very short. A couple of years ago, we took a house, a lovely, beautiful house. We being my wife and I, with a view to caring for my mother, who's 92 and not very well, and I've got an autistic brother and a brother who's kind of on the spectrum. So there's 3 people to care for. So, and that level of care that's been needed has been going up and up and up and up and up. So And then the lockdown came, and it's like, you know, there was no respite for us. There's no possibility of getting out. My mum used to do a few trips out and about, although she's not been very well, particularly over the last 3 months. She probably wouldn't have gone anywhere anyway. But, you know, so all of this has brought huge pressure for me personally, as well as obviously, you know, working as well. And so, yeah, it's been a big deal, very big deal. And, you know, I'm talking about this caring on a very small level compared with what we're speaking about.
I think, though, it's nice to hear that you've got that experience. Sorry, I'm trying to stifle these coughs from my hay fever.
Right.
It's nice to hear that you've got that. I always like to hear about people and their experiences because it helps people to understand that everyone's grounded, everyone's got their caring experience. And, you know, you're coming at it from a point of view where you're not just saying, I think this is how things should be done. You're actually a carer yourself for family members. And,
you know, it's great, you know, because mum is pretty absent-minded these days. She's 92, and as I say, she's basically dying, and her memory is completely shot. So to her, it's like, well, why can't we just go out? And it's like that's kind of every 2 hours, and it's like, and so after 3 or 4 months of that, it's for her, it's like, you know, she just doesn't get it. So imagine that on a scale where you've got 10, 20, 30 people not really understanding about this whole COVID-19 and all of this business. It's a real challenge, you know, and then homes having to manage people not visiting and how they do all of that, and doing, you know, funerals online, and it's just been remarkable.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you know, you've got that, you totally understand what people are going through. And when people come home, when care workers come home, they must be absolutely exhausted. So that's why this whole allowing your care staff, allowing your senior team to just restock and take stock of their position and have some time. I think this program is just so interesting. It's such a good way to look at it right now when we have a little bit of a pause before maybe the winter comes and there's added complications. So it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's, you know, there's an invitation, isn't there, to refocus yourself on something probably quite different for most people, but actually incredibly valuable and will pay dividends in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you for that insight.
Okay.
Alessandro, how about you? How have you been coping with lockdown? I know you have two little ones. Have I made that up as well?
No, you haven't. No, not at all. And
that was after he was in the army.
And I've been in the army, by the way. I generally have, although I haven't made a career out of that. But I have, and I learned a lot in many ways. But so I'm learning a lot from my little ones. They are similar age, I believe, to your little ones, and it's a different kind of challenge. I'm lucky enough that, you know, I didn't have to care directly for anyone apart from looking after the family together with my wife. But, you know, I think the emotions are, the roller coaster we've been through is comparable. You know, no, it's not comparable, but there's been a roller coaster of a different kind. And the point is, we're starting to come out of it, and you really feel that you start to feel and think in a different way. And if you've been through a lot, which in a way, luckily we haven't, well, we have, but we really haven't, then it is very different from where we are now. So I think, you know, we try to make the most of what has happened in the last few months in every respect. We try to help as many people as we could in the best way we could. And now we're just trying to, for ourselves, but, you know, for everyone we're working with, try to help to look forward, which is, you know, so what are we going to do next? How are we going to get ready for whatever comes next? And almost focusing on that rather than focusing on what has happened before. And that's the, you know, the looking forward element that we were talking about.
The future. Excellent.
The future. Uncertain, but hey, we need to get ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been really good talking to you both. I've really enjoyed that. And it's nice to kind of think of people who are looking to the future. And you've built this course, this scheme, and I'll put it up again. The details are helping people to become a recovery champion. And of course, we want to try and get people not only to engage with that type of dialogue and that type of scheme, but also on this Chat for Care, we're offering a 10% discount if you subscribe and email us, and we will give you a discount code. So that's our email address at the bottom there, just there. And yeah, if people could just shoot us an email, and then we will give you a discount code, 10% discount on the training to become a recovery champion. So it's been a pleasure to have you both on tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you both very much. We've been all of your details are in the description of this video, so people can get in contact. On Twitter, you're at Talent for Care, so people can tweet on there. So yeah, do get in touch with Talent for Care. It's a really interesting initiative, and I'd love to see how it goes in the coming weeks and months, and maybe we'll revisit it later.
Great, and thank you, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Sophie. You know, it's
much.
really great pleasure. And yeah, thanks for everything you're doing. It's very, very interesting, and hopefully, you know, we lived up to the standards of everything you're doing with Coproduce Care, which is absolutely amazing.
Except you haven't been in the army, which has really disappointed me. So
I can make up for that. I can apply now.
Yeah, he can make up some story about it. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah. Play the game, you know, play along.
Yeah.
All right then. Thanks, guys.
Well,
bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh, that was a really nice chat. And it was very interesting to hear about what they're doing and how they're looking to the future for care. And I think we need to start thinking, we need to change the rhetoric from the problems and the issues and turn towards what are the solutions? How can we help the care sector? How can we help managers, care staff? What can we do? The sound bites that you hear from the press or that you hear from local government or whatever, we need to start thinking about what do we actually need to do. So it's good to see organisations looking towards that and thinking to the future. So again, if you've got any ideas, anything that you want to share, any people you want to hear from, do get in touch with us, do let us know. And of course, do subscribe and send us an email if you want to find out more about Talent for Care and get the discount for their recovery champions. And then just really to let you know, we're going to take a little bit of a break. So we aren't going to be doing any streams for a week or so, but we will be back again. And we are going to be reaching out to people because we're, like I explained last night, we're going into a new phase for Coproduce Care, and we want to be turning it more into a media channel so that we want to do paper reviews. So if you want to do a paper review with us, if you know somebody who would be great with doing a paper review with us, then get in touch, email us, send us a message on Twitter, on Facebook, and get involved. We'll also be using our Facebook group more. So if you follow us on Facebook, you'll find information about that. We'll be talking about news and views on social care on our Facebook page. So lots of new things coming up, and I'm really looking forward to that and want to involve more people who have lived experience, people who are using care services. If someone, like anyone, you know, from any care service could come and do a paper review or and when I say paper, it's also stuff that's online. I'm not too fussed about the broadsheets myself, but it's a lot of the amazing stories and information comes online, blogs that people working in care, experiencing care have written. So I think we want to open up that debate, as always, to a wider set of news and knowledges, and get those represented. So get involved, get in touch, and let's bring things forward. We've created a really good platform. We're really excited for it. Enjoy the sun. I think this is the last day. It's going to be so hot, so maybe get out and get some warm air before it cools down. And we really look forward to seeing you again after a short break. Keep in touch with us on social media and on Facebook and of course on YouTube. Take care, everybody.